Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the fifth online HS2 update. As usual, I would like to thank James Cadle very much and the Chess Valley U3A for hosting this online update this morning. We're very grateful. For clarification, the dates stated are 2023, unless otherwise stated, and the weights I refer to are metric tons, which are slightly less than imperial tons. HS2 will approach the Chilterns via the 2-mile-long Colne Valley Viaduct across the Colne Valley Regional Park near Denham. This will be the longest viaduct in the UK, and it will cross a number of lakes, the Grand Union Canal, the River Colne, as well as Moor Hall Road and the A412 North Orbital Road. Here we're looking back along more or less the whole length. It's quite staggering to think that's nearly 2 miles. We're looking south right across the regional park, and you can just about make out the southern end of the viaduct beyond the canal. We're going to start where the route crosses the A412, the North Orbital Road, at West Hyde between Denham and Maple Cross. Construction of the viaduct started from the northern end last May, and it's due to be completed by the end of 2024. This picture, you can see sections of the viaduct being moved into place. And this is the launching girder, which was used to lift and lower deck segments into place. Whatever your feelings about HS2, it certainly is an impressive piece of engineering. There are concerns, however, that the chalk aquifer under the Colne Valley could be compromised by chemical pollution resulting from the construction of the viaduct. Segments are added in both directions from each pier, and you can see the pier in the middle there, and that balances the weight. And this is one of the larger sections being lowered into place. To handle rail braking loads, 4 shock absorber units will be integrated into this deck structure, and there will also be 4 expansion joints. And steel tensioning cables are threaded through the segments to strengthen the bridge. I just had to include this somewhere over the rainbow. Viaduct segments are made on site, and each weighs up to 140 tons. They're currently making 12 each week, and 1,000 will be needed altogether. As the viaduct is on an elongated curve, every segment will be slightly different shape depending on where it fits into the viaduct. A match casting technique is used where each segment is poured against the previous one to ensure the whole deck fits perfectly. And these are the 3 factories on site. Beyond the viaduct segment factory, which is the first one, is the tunnel lining factory, and beyond that is the slurry treatment plant. The batching plant here produces all the concrete used on site, as well as for all the tunnel vent shafts and the North Tunnel portal near Great Missenden. The next section of the route is the 10.6-mile-long twin-bore Chiltern tunnel. The tunnel portal is just south of the M25, as you can see here, between junctions 17 and 16. The tunnel boring machines, 2 tunnel boring machines, 2 BMs, started tunnelling in May 2021. They are nearly 200 meters long and has been specifically designed for the mix of chalk and flint they will encounter under the Chilterns. They're expected to take around 3 years to excavate the 9-meter diameter tunnels, cutting around 15 meters a day. The spoil will be mixed with water to form a slurry, which will be pumped back to the treatment plant. There will be 38 cross passages between the tunnels, which will be used to evacuate passengers in the event of an emergency. Tunnels will be lined with concrete as they go, and 7 segments in each section, each weighing up to 8 tons. And this shows a giant robotic arm putting a segment into place. The segments as well, they're made on site. 196 are now being produced each day. Each weighs up to, each weighs 8 tons. They're not all identical, and each has an identifying barcode. And they are stored outside here for 28 days to cure, and they will be making 112,000 altogether. They are then moved into the tunnels on these double-ended vehicles. This is the slurry treatment plant. 3 million cubic meters of spoil from the tunnels will be treated here. It is the largest filter press in the world, where the water is removed by squeezing the slurry at a pressure of over 200 pounds per square inch, and 30 tons are processed every hour. The treated slurry is then used for local landscaping and for the construction of the viaduct embankment. This will help create 127 hectares of wildlife-rich chalk grassland, and this area will be known as the Colne Valley Western Slopes. So you can see the North Orbital is running across the bottom of the picture, M25 at the top. And this is an artist's impression of what it might look like eventually. This is an HS2 picture. I haven't been in the tunnel yet. I'm working on it. The 1 meter wide walkway shown on the left will be permanent, and that will be used, as I say, for evacuating passengers in the event of an emergency. All the HGVs arriving at this compound now use these temporary slip roads off the M25, and this keeps most of the HGVs off local roads. Once complete, they are temporary. Once they're complete, these slip roads will be removed. So the crosses here indicate what the area we'll be looking at now. The bottom one is the tunnel portal we just looked at, and the top one is just beyond Wendover as the route leaves the Chilterns. This shows the 4 tunnel ventilation shafts across the Chilterns, and there will also be an intervention shaft just short of the North Tunnel portal at South Heath. And these would also be used for emergency access during operation of the railway. The tunnels will be up to 90 meters below ground, and you can see from the cross section at the bottom, the deepest part is the top of Gore Hill just before they get to Amersham. The 413, which I will refer to constantly, is the main road that runs through past Chalfont St Giles and Gerrard's Cross, and eventually joins up with the A40 and then down to the M40. Chalfont St Peter vent shaft is now complete, and a basement for that house, a basement that will house the ventilation fans has also been constructed. This is the deepest of the shafts at 66 meters, and the tunnels themselves will actually, the top of the tunnels will be 55 meters below ground level. The TBMs reached here in March 2022, and this shows the internal work structures within the shaft, and the tunnel connections are now being installed. All the vent shafts are now diesel free, using alternatives including green hydrogen, LPG and biofuels. This applies to the site, just the sites themselves, and not to all the vehicles visiting the sites. At long last, we have a prediction of the HGV numbers visiting all the sites across the Chilterns. And these are for the first 3 months of 2023. For the Chalfont St Peter vent shaft, the numbers are 45 HGVs per day during January and February, and 25 during March. These figures reflect the worst case scenario, and it's expected the actual vehicle flows will be lower than those identified. Each figure relates to the number of HGVs visiting the sites, and traffic movements, of course, will be double that. A logistics team manages the flows in conjunction with the site teams and the subcontractors and suppliers. Chalfont St Giles is the next vent shaft, and that's situated at the top of Bottomhouse Farm Lane. Access to the shaft is via a half-mile long temporary haul road that will be removed once construction is complete. Excavation of the shaft is complete, and the base slab of the shaft has been formed. The basement that will house the fans has also been constructed here. The TBMs reached here last September. And here you can see the basement and the shaft itself just beyond. And down the blue curtaining at the bottom, that's where the basement is being waterproofed. Huge structures. The basements were constructed using what they call secant piling, where an interlocking series of piles were installed and the site was then excavated. The spoil from all the shaft was removed to the south tunnel portal for use in the landscaping that we mentioned earlier. This is the top of the shaft here, and this will be removed to give access from the basement. And now here we're looking down the shaft to the construction of the shaft lining. What you see is what is known as a crash deck, and it's not actually the bottom of the shaft. The tunnel depth here will be 34 meters, and the tops of the tunnels are 26 meters below ground. The locals seem to have got used to the work going on and don't take much notice. And here you can see quite clearly see the temporary haul road, which goes back to the A413. The daily HGV numbers here are an average of 25 in January and March and 55 in February. So the Chalfont St Peter, Chalfont St Giles vent shaft, the approved access route is what we've already mentioned, back along the A413 to the A40. The combined HGV averages here for these two sites will be 70 in January, 100 in February and 50 in March. Moving on to the Amersham vent shaft, which is situated in Wilden Lane, just west of Amersham Hospital. The A404 goes off the top of the picture to High Wycombe, and the 413 turns right towards Great Missenden. This shows the completed shaft and the basement. The ancillary construction equipment has been removed, and one tower crane dominates the site now, as it does all the shafts. Construction of the internal vent shaft structures, floors and access is now underway. And here you can see the tie beams across the basement, and you can just see a staircase actually being lowered into position. The TBMs, it's weird to think, but looking south from here, the TBMs are probably under that field because they're due to reach here in the middle of February, just a few weeks away. All vehicles, and they're very particular about this, have their wheels washed before leaving all the sites. The daily HGV numbers here and 90 during January, and 25 in February and March. For all the sites from here to Wendover, the approved route is the A413, and then the A355 up Gore Hill to Beaconsfield, around the new link road there, and then to the M40. There have been a number of grants awarded to local community projects in the local area, and these come from HS2's Community and Environment Fund. The latest one was to St Michael and All Angels Church in Amersham, which received a grant of £56,000 to pay for a package of projects aimed at improving community facilities. And this gives you an idea of some of the beneficiaries locally, and they've been quite substantial. You can see the Scouts got a new Scout hut, £75,000, and the Amersham Band got a rehearsal room, a new headquarters for them. They're quite substantial sums. But as somebody pointed out to me yesterday, yeah, but it's his taxpayers' money. The tunnels pass between the 18th century Shardlow's house and Shardlow's Lake. And then they go under the Misbourne for the second time. We have fingers crossed that they're not going to do any damage here, because if they do, Shardlow's Lake will be lost. There were no problems with the first crossing under Chalfont St Giles, so let's just hope that we have the same here. The fourth shaft is alongside the dual carriageway A413 at Little Missenden. And this is looking west across the Little Missenden vent shaft and the A413, and it shows the close proximity of the River Misbourne at the top of the picture. This shaft is also complete, and the depth here is 31 metres. Work is well underway creating the basement and lining the shaft, and the TBMs should reach here in July or August. And the tunnels will be 24 metres below the ground. As the TBMs approach, monitoring equipment will be used to check for possible subsidence on the 413. And they're doing this with all the roads where the TBMs pass under. Access to the shaft here is via a temporary right-hand turn across the dual carriageway. This will save HGVs a 5-mile round trip to the Frith Hill roundabout at Great Missenden and all the way back again. Daily HGV numbers here are an average of 15 in January and a peak of 70 during February and March. I'm pleased to say that new daffodils have been planted to replace those lost when the temporary right-hand turn was created. So we will soon see what they look like, won't we? This is an impression of what the head house could look like. 1,700 trees will be planted, some 20 different species, and they're hoping to start planting these before construction of the shaft is complete. And I have to say, I think once that is all done, I don't think you'll even notice that it's there. The last of the shafts, the Chesham Road intervention shaft, doesn't have, as it says, an intervention shaft. It's not a ventilation shaft. It doesn't have any fans, so it doesn't have a basement. Much simpler construction. And because the shaft is above the water table, a different form of construction called the caisson method was used for this shaft. And this is weird because sections of the caisson are constructed above ground and then sunk to the required level by excavating material from within the caisson. So this was the view as the last section was put in place from the Chesham Road. And I'm sure locals will have wondered what this ventilation shaft was doing sticking up in the air. So this is the final concrete pour using 6 loads of concrete, the last section. And this is looking down on it. You're probably wondering how I managed to take that picture. And that's the answer. They're very cooperative. The contractors are always very cooperative and dangled me down there in a cage. And I have to say, they lowered me very gently. This is the bottom of the shaft awaiting further removal of the spoil. There are cutters on the bottom of the caisson to assist the process. In June, the caisson unexpectedly dropped by about a metre. This was linked to the varying ground conditions, but it must have been quite alarming when the thing subsided of its own accord. The TBMs are due to arrive in October and November time, and the shaft depth here is 46 metres, and the tunnels will be 33 metres below the ground. HGV numbers here are an average of 10 in January and 20 during February and March. And all the traffic leaving the site travels west past the remains of Annie Bailey's restaurant and down to the A413. All of the shafts are due to be completed by May 2025. I'm pleased to see that they left all the trees lining the road here. And this is another one, I think, once it's finished, you'll barely notice it behind the trees. And this shows how close the last shaft is to the North Tunnel portal and to the cutting beyond. The portal is situated just north of Frith Hill in South Heath, just east of Great Missenden. And here we are looking east, so we're over Great Missenden, looking east towards Potter Row. And this, difficult to imagine then what it was going to look like. Well, this is the sad reality. So we're looking north towards the portal and the South Heath cutting, and Frith Hill is visible at the bottom of the picture. The tunnel will run through deep alluvial clay between Frith Hill and the North Portal, and this will not be strong enough to support the tunnel. So 96 supporting pillars known as barrettes required to strengthen the ground have now been installed, along with the head wall for the portal. And it's strange to think that the head wall is there under the ground. This is where the TBMs will exit the tunnel, and they are due to reach here in December. They will then be dismantled and scrapped. These silos were used for storing the bentonite and the water used in constructing the barrettes and the diaphragm walling. And there's a treatment plant, slurry treatment plant as well, which prepared the slurry before it was moved to the South Tunnel portal. And this is as it is now. Now that's all been finished, that's all been removed, and you can see Frith Hill, the fence aligning Frith Hill at the top of the picture. Work for the next few months consists of constructing internal walls and drainage installation. There will be some daytime closure of Frith Hill for approximately 6 weeks to allow the UK power network to connect the tunnel portal to the mains electricity. And it's here that the contractors change from a line joint venture, who are building the Colne Valley Viaduct and the Chiltern Tunnel, to EKFB, who will construct the railway across Buckinghamshire. Once the weather improves, there will be very large movements of spoil from the cuttings northwards along the Hall Road. And this is looking back from more or less that same position. So we're looking back at what is now or becoming the South Heath cutting towards the tunnel portal. Access to the North portal is via a temporary Hall Road from the Link Road roundabout at Great Missenden, which you can just see at the bottom of the picture. Another haul road has been constructed alongside the route, linking all the construction work as far as Wendover. Although it means a lot more devastation, it does remove traffic from the local roads. Combined daily HGV numbers for the Align and EKFB sites at the North Tunnel portal are 85 in January, 127 in February, and 115 in March. A section of the central reservation between the two roundabouts at Great Missenden has been removed to allow very large loads direct access to the haul road. These loads will mainly be sections of the Wendover Dean and Small Dean Viaduct, and there will be 90 loads, each consisting of 30-metre long steel girders, which will be coming all the way from France. The contractors did have a trial run last November, which was completed without any problems. Traffic on the A413 will be controlled with temporary traffic lights. They'll also be using lights to allow the loads to pass under the Chiltern Railway Bridge to the north of Deep Mill Lane. Yeah, you have to use the whole width of the road, and they will fit under there. We now know they will because they've tried it. The third set of lights will be used to allow the loads to go round the A413, A404 roundabout just by the Amersham vent shaft. So you can see the lorries going in the opposite direction. So they will come round and they will go round the wrong way round the roundabout and then on along the 413. And they will use the access route along the 413 to the A40 and the M40 rather than through along via the A355 and Beaconsfield. They would never get round the roundabouts up there, let alone the left-hand turn at the bottom of Broad Hill. Deliveries will be in the evening and they will start in March. And just to give you an idea, that's about 5 months later than originally planned. So you can see how plans gradually slip. The route continues in a cutting under a series of bridges. In this section, they are all over bridges, meaning that they cross over the railway. Between Euston and the Chiltern Tunnel North Portal, the design speed progressively increases to a maximum of 200 miles an hour. The route alignment has been designed to enable speeds up to 225 miles an hour on the route north of the Chiltern Tunnel. So here we're looking east towards Potter Row, showing the first two footpath over bridges will be. And the route then crosses Leather Lane. Offline construction means the bridge will be built to the south of the road, which will then be diverted once construction is complete. 11 large oak trees have been removed so far. An alternative plan for the overbridge involving the loss of fewer trees has been put forward and is still being assessed. We await developments. Leather Lane is an important back corridor and provided refuge for at least 7 species of bat, including the endangered Barberstock bat. There's also a campaign to save Elona, the lone oak tree, which you can see to the right, which is threatened with destruction. They want to build an earth bund there to to control the sound. So hopefully that will be saved, an ancient oak tree. This is looking west along across the actual route. This is Leather Lane. So not a lot of work has gone on the actual route. All the work going on here is for the haul road, the construction of the haul road. And looking north beyond, you can see Grimm's Ditch and Iron Age earthworks. Alas, that has gone. That's down the bottom left-hand side. So this is the area now just to the north of Leather Lane. and there will be an access bridge here. Cottage Farm Overbridge will be constructed here. The next road bridge is Bowood Lane, and here we are looking west we are looking, I beg your pardon, we're looking east towards Kings Lane. We're looking from the A413. As this one is being constructed online, Bowood Lane is closed for 2 years, and it'll be eventually reinstated across the bridge once it's constructed. Bowood Lane is a little used sunken lane, and it was difficult to imagine just how it would look once construction of the overbridge got underway. And here we are looking south across the lane. And this is the reality as the piling for the bridge got underway. This is now completed, and the plans for the bridge have been submitted. At the moment, these have been rejected by Buckinghamshire Council, and again, we await developments. The route continues over Wendover Dean Viaduct, starting just north of Jones Hill Wood. Several public rights of way have been closed for the construction period here. One of them, TLE3, runs alongside Bowood Lane, and this will remain open during construction. And here you see a manned crossing. So if you use the footpath, you have to wait for the man to let you across. This serves as a diversion route for a number of other footpaths that are closed until the construction is complete. The Chiltern Way is one of them, a very popular Chiltern Way, and eventually it will be reinstated along its original route under the viaduct. This is looking west, so we're looking in the opposite direction here towards the A413, and you can clearly see the extent of the viaduct. You've got the south abutment on the left and the north abutment on the right. And change of direction again, Durham Farm on the just beyond the south abutment has now been completely demolished. And then beyond that, the north abutment. And you can quite clearly see the piers that are being formed. And this is what it will look like. It'll be 450 metres long and consist of 10 spans. The maximum height will be around 20 metres, and it is designed for trains to travel at 225 miles an hour. So that's what they will be doing over this bridge. The piers and viaduct sections are to be precast off-site before being transported to the site by road, as previously mentioned. North of the viaduct, the route continues into the Rocky Lane cutting, and this shows the very wide swathe of land used, much wider than was first envisaged. You can see Wendover Dean Farm at the bottom of the picture. Where it once looked out across rolling fields, all that can be seen now is the huge earthworks. This is just about where the route leaves the viaduct, meaning noise levels from passing trains will be at their maximum. Move on to the Rocky Lane cutting. This will be there'll be a plant maintenance and fuel storage depot here, just to make matters worse. And this is where the route crosses Rocky Lane on its way to Wendover. Rocky Lane is the last of the roads, and it's just short of the petrol garage on the 413. This will be an underbridge, meaning it will go under the route. Offline construction means that this busy lane will remain open while a bridge is constructed just to the north of the lane. The lane will then be realigned under the route. And you can also see this is now the EKFB Rocky Lane Underbridge satellite compound. Small Dean Viaduct will take the route over the A413 just before you get to the Wendover bypass travelling north. And as you approach Wendover now, the devastation here I have to say, is probably the worst anyway. It is really shocking. And this is looking south, or looking back along the route here. And there will be a small permanent diversion of the 413 to around one of the pillars. So that will be constructed alongside the road. And this is an artist's impression, looking north, what the viaduct might look like. A fully enclosed 600-metre long conveyor system is being built here to remove the stored spoil from earlier earthworks. This will transport spoil across the A413 and then the Chiltern Railway and Smaldene Lane. It was going to move an estimated 640,000 cubic metres of spoil. It is expected to save some 400 HGV movements a day over a 3.5-year period. So a staggering amount of lorries that will be kept off the road by the installation of that conveyor system. You can see the northern end of the conveyor on the other side of the Chiltern Railway, which is passing across the bottom of the picture. And this was supposed to start operating last September, but now probably March. Believe it or not, this is a temporary bridleway to be used while Smaldene Lane is closed for construction of the viaduct. Daily HGV numbers for the Smaldene viaduct are 20 in January and February and 30 in March. The route continues on an embankment up to 14 metres high alongside the Wendover bypass. Grove Farm Underbridge will take the farm access road under the railway bridge, and this will be the last bridge in the Chilterns. The route then enters the cut and cover, the so-called Wendover Green Tunnel alongside Backham Lane. This lane will be closed for 2 years, and yet another temporary link road will connect it to Ellsborough Road. The tunnel will be 3/4 of a mile long, and it will be built by excavating a cutting in the ground, forming a tunnel box from precast concrete segments, and then covering it over and landscaping it. There are serious concerns here still to be resolved that construction would interfere with the flow of water into the Wendover arm of the Grand Union Canal and the Western Turville Reservoir SSI Nature Reserve, diverting it towards Stoke Mandeville and increasing the flood risk. This is Ellsborough Road and shows the 6 houses awaiting demolition, and we're looking west across what will be the Green Tunnel. They have now gone after they'd had to wait for the bats to move and for the birds to fledge in a bird's nest that was found in another one of the houses. And we're looking north here, so this will be the middle of the tunnel, and then just beyond you can see the route continuing past what was Wendover Cricket Ground. Tantalisingly, they've left the pavilion there, so you can still see the cricket ground pavilion. Ellsborough Road will be diverted behind the remaining houses during construction. 7 public rights of way are affected, and most are now closed until construction is complete. The ancient Ridgeway will be diverted along the temporary road before being realigned over the tunnel. And here you can just see Wendover Station on the other side of the A413. Construction of this road is now underway, and here we are looking west along the rear access road for the houses in Ellsborough Road, and looking north along one of the public rights of way towards the remains of the cricket ground, which I mentioned. And that's what it used to look like. So that was the footpath going on past the cricket ground and the access road going up behind the houses in Aylesbury Road. The northern tunnel portal is alongside Folly Bridge, and here we're on the bridge looking west, and you can see Coombe Hill. This is the last of the bridges, so if you're travelling along the Wendover bypass, the Wendover tunnel runs approximately from the first of the bridges to the last, so you can get an idea of where it's going. And this is looking across towards Wendover. The route continues in the Wendover North cutting towards Nashley Road. The concrete batching plant supplies the sites south towards the Small Dean Viaduct. And HGV numbers for this site are an average of 80 in January and a peak of 120 in February and March. And the route leaves the Chilterns, crossing the Nashley Road on its way towards Stoke Mandeville and the Vale of Aylesbury. Daily HGV numbers for this site are an average of 12 from January to March. This is the last of the sites using the southbound access route. To summarise, total forecast HGV numbers travelling along the A413 and the A355 in each direction is 360 in January and 422 in February and March. I must stress that this is the worst case scenario and numbers may be less. In addition, there is a very significant number of other vehicles, vans and 4x4s visiting the sites. This amounts to 545 a day. Strangely, this is just visiting the EKFB sites. It's rather strange because there's only 17 visiting all the aligned sites, but I'm assured that that figure is right. This means that there could be getting on for 2,000 vehicle movements a day during February and March. Beyond the Chilterns, now this is where I usually stop, but I did say the last one, had we had time, I would have carried on. So we're now quickly, I'm going to take you on up to Calvert. So we're going to move on towards Stoke Mandeville. So this is the first little section we're looking at. So the crosses Nashley Road that we've just been looking at, and the first section will be as far as Hartwell House, just to the west of Aylesbury. So we're continuing on Nashley Road, and the overbridge here will take the road over the route. And the road will be temporarily diverted on a bridge, another bridge over the route, whilst that overbridge is being completed. So that's something that we will see emerge in the not too distant future, I'm afraid. This was the archaeological site, sort of St Mary's Church, where so much was found and so much learned about the history of the church and the area as well, and people that were buried there. Risborough Road will be stopped up, and it will be diverted around the newly constructed Stoke Mandeville Relief Road opposite Millhouse Farm. Local access will be maintained via an underpass. The artefacts have been removed from the St Mary's site, and the site now covered over. And as I say, Risborough Road will be stopped up and diverted. Risborough Road, the Stoke Mandeville bypass will travel along for a while to the left of the HS2 route, and then it crosses over the route, and it will then go up towards the lower road at Stoke Mandeville. And this is where it comes out. So if you travel along here, it'll be familiar to most of you, I'm sure, because it's the road leading to Stoke Mandeville Hospital, and they are actually building a roundabout here at the moment. The Chiltern Railway from Prince's Risborough will then cross over the route here. The rail overbridge, like the roads, will be constructed offline, and the railway will then be diverted over the new bridge. And this is the route, the A41, this is where the route crosses the A418 Oxford Road at Hartwell. So you can see Aylesbury over to the right-hand side, and you can see Hartwell House, National Trust property at Hartwell House. The Oxford Road will cross the route on an overbridge, and this is going to be constructed some way to the south of its current alignment, behind the houses and behind those trees. So the next section from Hartwell to the A41 at Wadston. So you can see where Aylesbury is still on the right-hand side. So any of you golfers may well have played at what was the former Aylesbury Park Golf Club, sadly long gone now, one of the victims of HS2. Sorry, somebody's got a microphone. Could you mute, please? And you can see at the bottom picture just how close the Hartwell House, the grounds of Hartwell House, are to the route here. This is a site of the Tame Valley Viaduct, and it's just to the west of Rabbins Lane Industrial Estate, which you can see at the top, and the waste disposal site. So this is as you're leaving, the A41 is going across the top of the picture. You can just see actually the Chiltern Railway going across. So this is we've gone past all the car showrooms on the A41 and out the other side. And the north of this is the north abutment of the Tame Valley Viaduct, and you can see at the top of the picture, you can see Aylesbury Vale Parkway Station and beyond the new development, Berryfields. And then this is the A41 crossing at Fleet Marston. The A41 will be stopped up here, and it will be realigned, turning right alongside the HS2 route. So this is looking north along the A41 towards Wadston, and you can see Wadston Manor, the visitor centre and car park on the left, top left. So that this is the section we're going to be looking at now. So this is going north towards Wadston. We're looking east, and an accident black spot where Blackgrove Road joins the A41 will be removed because the A41 won't be used anymore. And then just beyond Blackgrove Road, the realigned A41 will turn left at a roundabout and cross over the route before rejoining its original alignment just south of Wadston. So we're now moving on to the Buckinghamshire Railway Centre and the final section to Calvert. This is the Buckinghamshire Railway Centre. We're looking east, and it will be impacted. One has to say, it won't lose any land, but the railway is going to be on a slight embankment there and running right alongside it. The track has been lifted beyond the railway centre, and there are no current plans to reinstate it, although it is referred to as the Aylesbury Link on HS2 maps. This would link the new East-West Railway to Aylesbury Vale Parkway. The infrastructure, between Quainton and Calvert, is being built to allow for 4 tracks in case this should ever be built. And this is a very sad sight. So this is the railway centre with the tracks removed, and this was once the Great Central Railway. Station Road will be diverted over the route, rejoining its original alignment some way to the east. You can see where the Metropolitan line continued on from here to Verney Junction. It's a dismantled railway, of course, and you can see it going off to the right-hand side. The Great Moor Energy from Waste Plant is just south of the Calvert. The route passes very close to it, and you can see here. And this is looking across. We've got the Calvert landfill site towards Sheep House Wood. This is an SSSI, a site of special scientific interest and home to several different bat species, including the most northerly known colony of the rare Beckstein's bat. 1.4 hectares of the wood at the southwestern edge has already been lost, as you can see here. Sheep House Wood bat protection structure will run for around a kilometre here alongside the wood. The structure will allow bats to cross the line without being harmed by passing trains. Of course, we'll be travelling at 225 miles an hour. It'll be a net covered tunnel and will be 10 metres high. And it's estimated it's going to cost some £40 million. So now we're looking north towards Calvert. School Lane Overbridge you can see just beyond Calvert, and the Calvert Jubilee Nature Reserve, and to the right at the top of the picture, Steeple Claydon. And looking across east, and you can see the Nature Reserve, and this is where HS2 will pass under the East-West Railway, which is now under construction. And this railway will eventually link Oxford and Cambridge. The Calvert Infrastructure Maintenance Depot will be alongside the East-West Rail line here, and that line continues on towards Winslow and Bletchley. And in the opposite direction, it continues west towards Bicester, and you can quite clearly see the bridge in the middle of the picture there, which will take that over HS2. HS2 then continues northwards on its way towards Twyford. Well, that's it. We've covered 34 miles of the route, and we've seen the construction of 2 tunnels, 4 viaducts, 35 bridges, as well as numerous cuttings and embankments. Once again, I'm so grateful to Andy Cordiner for making the aerial pictures possible. And again, I have to say to the contractors for their cooperation and for allowing me access to some of the sites. You can see most of the pictures I've used by visiting the HS2 photo diary on the Chiltern Society website. This shows the impact at a number of locations across the Chilterns and is constantly updated. And there are links there also to various videos and including previous updates, and in due course this one as well. And there's also a virtual fly-through along the entire route that we've just covered from Denham to Calvert. And that hopefully, again, I will update from time to time. An update for your diary. The next update will be on July the 8th. And I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much for your attendance. That concludes the meeting.